In this video, we look at the E-84C pressure pin not detected error. So in this error, what happens is our pressure transducer during a cook cycle sees greater than 3 psi. However, our lid pin switch doesn't change position. And so when the fryer sees that state, they both should be happening at the same time. When we hit 3 psi, this lid pin switch, the pin rises and changes position of this switch, where we should see both of those in agreement. If the control doesn't see those in agreement, then what we get is the E-84C error. So the control board de-energizes our solenoid valve and vents all the pressure out because it says, hey, there's a problem and I don't want to invite a safety risk here. Maybe there's an issue with our locking pin. And so what we'd want to check there, the first thing and the main thing that is the lid pin switch is a normally closed switch. And so it opens when the pin underneath it rises and lifts this up. It'll open. So if the switch is bad, if it's not opening when it lifts up, then that'll cause this E-84C error code. And so just check the switch. So to check this switch, it's pretty easy. I can lift up on this upper part, and we can hear it click and change position. And so I could test with my multimeter across these two leads and see if I change position from closed to open. I can also check on my control and see what the control sees. And so to do that, I'll go down to my control board. And down at the control, to do this, I need to get into HP info mode. To do that, I press my menu and info button at the same time. Takes me into info mode, and then I scroll through to inputs 2. Inputs 1, inputs 2. And right here is where it says lid OK. So what I want to do is lift up on the switch right now and see if the control can see it open up. When that switch is open, it'll say PR for pressure because it thinks it has pressure in the pot right now. So my switch is working properly. If you lift up on that switch and it continues just to say OK, then you know that somewhere we have an issue. So test your switch. If you're not seeing that change position, change the switch. So I'm going to exit out of this. I just press menu and info again. And now I'm back to off or cook. So now we know how to test this switch, but some other things to look for. If the switch is good, then we need to find maybe a short circuit in our two black wires all the way from the switch back to the control board. And so we'd want to make sure that, like here, there's no bare wire touching each other. Another thing that maybe we've seen before is if there's excessive moisture underneath the lid and these two bare wires, maybe the wires touch that moisture, it can short circuit and cause that state where it thinks that this isn't changing position. So check that, make sure we have continuity on both these wires, nothing shorted to ground or shorted across each other all the way to the control board. And then lastly, there could be an issue where the pin is not raising up under here. So this is a small upper pin. There's a larger lower pin we can't see that's connected to our lid liner. And so if that pin, for some reason, is not moving, then in that rare circumstance, the lid would need to be replaced. But again, that's a rare circumstance if that big pin isn't changing position. And the way you could do that is you could run a cook cycle with the lid cover off. Then you can watch and see if this switch actually raises up during a cook cycle and lowers. If it's not moving, that would be a problem with the lower locking pin that contacts the lid liner. That is not a serviceable part, so the lid would have to be replaced in order to service that. And if that was the case, the store would be able to continue to cook. They would just not be able to cook with pressure. It would all be open fried.